Jake Adams was the kind of person most people didn't notice. At 29, he was a delivery driver for a local courier service, spending his days and nights zigzagging across the city in his old beat-up sedan. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and Jake liked the solitude of the open road. Life hadn't been easy for Jake. Growing up in a small town with a single mom who worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table, he'd learned the value of hard work early on. He'd dreamed of becoming a mechanic, but after his mom fell ill, college became an impossible luxury. Instead, Jake stayed home, took on odd jobs, and eventually landed in the driver's seat of his courier gig. It wasn't the life he imagined, but he took pride in doing it well. Most nights he'd come home to his tiny apartment, heat up whatever leftovers he could find in the fridge, and unwind by tinkering with car parts he'd collected over the years. It was his way of staying connected to the dream he'd put on hold. On the other side of town, Evelyn Hart was living a life that seemed worlds away from Jake's. At 38, Evelyn was a celebrated author, though she had always kept her personal life under wraps. Her books, often tackling themes of resilience and redemption, had gained her a loyal following, but she rarely gave interviews or appeared in public. Evelyn's love for storytelling began as a child, growing up in a quiet household filled with books. Her parents, both teachers, encouraged her creativity, but tragedy struck when she was 17. A car accident claimed their lives, leaving Evelyn to navigate the world on her own. Writing became her escape, and eventually, her salvation. Despite her success, Evelyn remained humble. She spent her days tucked away in her apartment, writing and reading, occasionally venturing out to the local bookstore or coffee shop. But the solitude had its drawbacks. She often felt disconnected from the world her stories tried to reflect. It was a late Tuesday night when Jake's and Evelyn's worlds collided. Jake was on his last delivery for the evening, driving through a quieter part of the city he didn't often visit. The streets were dimly lit, lined with old brownstones and scattered lampposts that cast long shadows. As he approached a park on the edge of the neighborhood, something caught his eye. A woman was struggling with a man near the entrance. Her muffled shouts pierced the stillness of the night. Instinct took over. Jake pulled his car to the curb, his heart pounding as he grabbed the flashlight from his glove compartment and ran toward them. "Hey, leave her alone!" he yelled, his voice trembling but firm. The mugger turned to face him, a sneer spreading across his face. Jake felt a surge of fear. The man was taller, stronger, and clearly not afraid of confrontation. But something deeper pushed him forward. Jake raised the flashlight, brandishing it like a weapon. "You don't want to do this," he said, his voice steady now. For a tense moment, the mugger hesitated. Then, with a frustrated growl, he shoved the woman to the ground and bolted into the shadows. Jake hurried to the woman's side. She was shaken, her hands trembling as she clutched a torn book bag. "Are you okay?" Jake asked, kneeling beside her. "I think so," she said, her voice soft but steady. "Thank you. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't come." As Jake helped her to her feet, the woman introduced herself. "I'm Evelyn," she said, brushing dirt from her coat. "I was walking home from the bookstore. Guess I wasn't paying attention." Jake offered a small smile. "Well, Evelyn, it's lucky I came by when I did. I'm Jake." Evelyn looked at him closely. He was younger than she'd expected, with a kind face and tired eyes that hinted at long hours and hard work. "Jake, you were brave," she said sincerely. "Most people would have just driven past." Jake shrugged, his humility shining through. "I couldn't just leave you there." Evelyn insisted she was fine, but Jake offered to drive her home. "It's no trouble," he said when she hesitated. "You shouldn't walk alone after that." During the drive, their conversation flowed naturally. Evelyn mentioned her love for books, but didn't reveal she was an author. Jake shared stories about his deliveries, laughing at the odd things people asked him to transport. When they reached her apartment, Evelyn turned to him. "Jake, I'll never forget what you did for me tonight. Thank you." Jake smiled, embarrassed by her gratitude. "Just glad I could help." Months passed, and Jake returned to his routine. He thought about Evelyn occasionally, wondering how she was doing, but life kept him busy. One afternoon, while grabbing coffee at a cafe, Something caught his eye, a book on the display shelf titled Courage in the Shadows. The cover was striking, but what truly stopped him in his tracks was the author's name, Evelyn Hart. Curious, Jake picked up the book and flipped to the dedication page. To Jake, the stranger who reminded me that courage and kindness still exist in this world. This story is for you. Jake's heart raced as he read the words. He bought the book and devoured it that night. The story was about an ordinary man who acted selflessly in a moment of danger, unknowingly changing the lives of everyone around him. A week later, Jake received a package in the mail. Inside was a signed copy of the book and a handwritten note. Dear Jake, I hope this finds you well. Your kindness and bravery inspired me to write a story I've been struggling to tell. I've also donated a portion of the book's earnings to local shelters in your name, so your courage can help even more people. With endless gratitude, Evelyn. Jake sat in his tiny apartment, staring at the book and the note. For the first time in a long time, he felt like his life mattered in a way he hadn't imagined. He wasn't just a delivery driver. He was someone's hero. And in that quiet moment, Jake realized that even the smallest actions could create ripples of change.